Alright, hey guys, today we're going to be making a tenoning jig. I have those doors I want to make. I've got like 4 or 5 more doors I want to make, and on the previous doors, the 2 that I made before, I used the dowel jig that I have, and I use dowels to hold the pieces together. And then in this one I want to make the little stub tenons. I want to make the groove for the panels at like 1/2 inch. I'm going to use 1/2 inch for the panels on the inside. And so I was thinking if I had 1/2 inch tenons that I could just kind of glue those pieces together and forget about the dowels. Okay, so that was my idea. But before I even try to do that, I have to make the tenoning jig. And so I looked online, and the tenoning jig is you know, $100 to $150. And I already have this. I already have plywood that I can use to try and make one. And so I looked at a couple pictures online to get an idea, and I like the idea of one that slides along the fence. And I just used the fence to adjust, and I think that seems very simple. Should be easy enough to make, and should be fairly useful. So the first thing I have to do is basically make a piece here, a piece on top, and then a piece that goes up tall, and then some little ribs to support that tall. Okay, I've got a couple pieces of plywood here that I had in my stock, and this small one I think I'm going to let dictate the length, right? Because this would be a good one for over here, this would be a good one for the top, and then a long piece for going up. And it's not going to be this long, this is going to be actually fairly tall. So this would probably be too much, so I'm going to chop this one down a little bit, because I don't think I really need it that tall, but I do need it fairly tall. The boards that I have are 2 by 8 or 2 by 6 that I chopped down to about 5 inches. So those are going to be, in the doors, about 30 inches wide, right? So I need at least 20 some inches to have good support. So about 20 inches I think would be fair. It makes it fairly tall. All right, so without further ado, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my table saw fence, right? And I'm just going to strike a line on this board here, and I'm going to cut this first piece over here. This out of the way. Alright, so I've got this line. I'm just going to basically set up my fence to save this line. And if I go a little higher, then I should be able to sand or trim. If I go too low and I'm lower than this, then it won't be resting, and I'll need to shim it or something. So I think that I'm going to go a little bit big for this first cut, and let's see how this one goes. Get my thing here. Yep, so that's a little bit high, but so that will give me a good here. Now I need all the way across. So again, if I go a little big, I think that's okay. So we're gonna strike a line underneath now, where we need this one. Right, so let me cut this guy. Alright. And then the last one is going to be tall. So first thing I have to do is get this width down here. So we're going to toss this piece over here. And we're going to measure the width. And again, it doesn't have to be exact. It's just got to be kind of about the same width so it doesn't look ugly. Set these over here. Alright, and let's do it this way. And then I said about 20, so I'm just going to measure, and 20 is just an arbitrary number. I mean, basically I'm going to need to clamp, but we will just cut that with the wire gauge. Here, still a good piece of wood. Alright, so that should give me, now, I'm just going to set this guy here. This is the one that's really important here, that this one be square to the table. And the other ones basically just hold it onto the fence. So I'm going to clamp this to my fence. I don't think I can clamp it to the fence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these guys here and set them up so that it's square. And I'm going to put my heavy bricks on there just to help hold it. So these bricks weigh like 16 pounds. So they will help hold that, because I can't clamp. Because I need to put these pieces here. So this guy's going to go here, and this guy's going to go there. Now I want to put some shim on this board here so that I'm not too tight. And I think I'm just going to glue and tack. I'm just going to tear off a piece of paper, cut this fringe off. I'll just cut it in half, and then I'll fold that in half. So that should give me a decent little shim. Should maybe cut that in half even. Alright, so I've got a little piece of paper there. Paper here. We're going to set these on the ends, and that should give me just a decent little shim, just so that I'm not too tight. And then I am going to glue and staple this guy here. and I'm just loosely pressing it against. I don't want to clamp it, because if I clamp it, then it's going to be too hard. See, now that one's shifted, so I'm going to have to adjust, I think. No, that's all right. Alright, so that guy should be good. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Actually, it shifted just a little bit. This side looks good. This side's going to be a little loose. I still think it'll be alright. I could always add some shims to the inside. Alright, so let's put some glue on here. Alright, now we're going to move these. I don't know if that's absolutely necessary, but I think it helped. And now we're going to staple this one. Don't want to do is have the staple come up through. Alright, so I'm actually going to leave that clamp on there, and I am going to move it out a little bit, maybe. Get one more staple in there. Should be good. I can take that off. I think it'll be fine. One more staple. Here's a look at the glue up. So, like I said, I've got these weighted and pushed in, trying to hold that thing square. And then I'm clamping here, and then the other side. And then these are clamped just to squeeze that in just a hair. Hopefully it won't be loose. I may put another board on this side to give me a wider base as well to ride on. And so we're going to see after we're done, after this glue dries, how wobbly it is. If it's wobbly, I'll add another board. And then, like I said, I need to make some to hold that perfectly, you know, because this might flex. Although it's 3/4 inch birch plywood, it shouldn't flex. But if I add the ribs, then it definitely won't flex. So, all right, we're gonna let this dry, and then we'll be back. All right, so here we are back. The glue should be dry. Put these here. Oh, yeah. Alright, So what I'm really testing is that it's not wobbly and that it slides. Okay, so it's not wobbly, that's good. I'm gonna bet it's too tight. Yeah, it's pretty tight. But it's got some glue in here. I could probably scrape this glue out here. So that'll probably loosen up a little bit as I go. Definitely want to put a handle on it or use one of those ribs to move it back and forth. Yeah, so that moves a little bit, but I don't think it's enough to make a huge difference. Yeah, I don't think that's going to make any difference at all. So next I got to make these ribs to help support, and then I also have to make a board here that's at 90 degrees, perfectly 90 degrees to the table, so that it can hold. Okay, so I think I also might want to make it so that it's 45-degree angle. I don't know if I'm ever going to get into angled joints, but it's possible I would. And so what I'll do is I'll make my board and then I'll use bolts to secure it, so that if I do want to move it around, I can move it 45-degree angle and still be able to make a tenon. Alright, so for my rib pieces, I'm just going to use a piece of this plywood, and I'm going to cut it to be just square. I'm going to cut two pieces that'll just go along this here. And so all I really need is two pieces that are, we'll say 16 by 2.5. So I'll cut the 2.5s first. And now we need to chop these off at 16. Alright, so that gives me 2 ribs to help secure the top like this. Okay, so I'll glue and staple these all in there, so that way when this is standing up, this thing won't flex at all. The next thing I need, like I said, is a piece to go here, and I've decided to use this 2x3 here because it's about the right height anyway, and actually I'm going to raise it just a tad so there'll be a little bit of space under here, but this will eventually get chewed up and beaten up anyway, so this will be a replaceable board. I'm going to clamp this board here as a guide for my, and it's kind of arbitrary really, the width of these. I'm not too worried about it, but what I want to do is now glue this into place and clamp it down, and then drive some staples into it, and then I'll take this board off, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So we are going to glue the bottom and this side, tripping on everything. Okay, take a clamp here, get it on there. Just to hold it in place so I can knock a couple of staples in there. Make sure my fingers are out of the way. Just a little bit. So we'll go over just a hair. This next one, that one missed a little bit. That's not going to be able to get in there. So, okay. A couple of these missed, but I'm not too worried about it. It should work just fine. Alright, let's do the other side. And then what I'll do is I will put my bricks on this as like a clamp. Alright, so this one's going to go right there. supporting board. Almost got all of them in the supporting board. Missed all of them. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. That was way off from the beginning. Alright, so these I'm probably going to clip off because I missed completely. But I'm going to put my blocks on there and on there. Alright, so these are done drying. Next I need to mount this board here at 90 degrees and then secure it with a couple of bolts. And that's just so that I can swap this board out when I need to. So let's get this clamped at about 90 degrees. And what I think I'll do is leave the bolts a little loose so that I can adjust. Now I can just tighten this down when it's time to swap the board out. I can just quickly swap the board out. Here's a look at the finished Tenoning Jig. Tenoning Jig? Alright, so the idea is to be able to move this into place and push it over the blade. So let's get a piece of scrap. Alright, so it's just a piece of scrap wood here. The idea is we'll be able to clamp it. So first we're supposed to cut the shoulders first, right? Gotta cut the shoulders first. So let's get this thing over here. And let's go 1/2 inch. here. We'll set this to 1/2 inch. Now I can use my cross-cut miter gauge against the fence in this instance because I'm not going all the way through the piece of wood. I'm only hogging out a line out of it, and so there's not going to be a loose piece that's going to break loose and bind against this fence. So this should be completely safe to do. Run that through and cut that shoulder. Okay. All right, now we got to move this. We gotta get this guy back on here, over here, and now we're gonna get this set up and clamped, and that's gonna go right there. Of course you can't see that, but what I'm doing is I'm lining up my line on my 0 clearance insert with this line here. Then we're going to clamp again. Make sure we're up against there. And let's give it a try. Make sure I keep my hands out of the way. Alright, and so there is a quick tenon, stub tenon that I'm going to use, and that's going to be good. I hope that's going to be good. We're going to find out. Now it's it's 1/2 inch, so it's just about perfect. Alright, so that is it for this video. Alright, so that's it. That's the shop-made tenoning jig with scrap wood that I had, or wood that I had in stock basically. But if I would have had to go out and buy a 2x3, that's like $4, and this birch plywood, which would be like $35 for the entire sheet, and I used a small portion of that sheet. So we'll go with $5. So there's a tenoning jig for less than $10. Of course, these bolts and things I had, but even if I had to buy those, it'd be max $5. So $15 or less, you can build your own jig to get by, and you can just make it up as you go, like I did. I just basically kind of made it specific to the fence, and I know that I wanted 90 degrees here, which you could check. You could loosen these bolts and make it perfect. I may turn around and like grease the bottom of it or something so that it slides easier, or grease the insides, but I think it worked just fine. So alright, that's it, and Thanks for watching.